good evening, and welcome to this Wednesday, February 3rd edition of the Islandstats Sports Show. I'm your host, Earl Basin, and I'm joined by co-host Jason Ford. We have Paralympians as well as coaches, and this evening we're going to be talking about the lead up to Tokyo, the start of the training and getting into competition, as well as this region, our region, with so many events that have been postponed throughout the year. We're just looking forward to having some start to the sport in which these athletes and their coaches are so committed to. But first of all, everyone would know we have Jessica Lewis, her coach, Curtis Tom, Lisa Myers, who's also a coach, and I know I'm going to get this wrong, but Nandini Sharma. Okay. So, first of all, welcome. I believe someone's got it playing in the background. We're going to have to.
Yes, that's me. Hang on.
Okay. All right. Well, Curtis, let me start. Curtis left. Where did he go? Jess and Curtis left. Well, Lisa, let's start with you. As a coach, how have you been working with ensuring the athletes that you work with stay mentally and physically in some sort of shape for whenever this is about to start?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key, like as a coach, your job is to plan. And with COVID and how the pandemic's been going, those plans are constantly changing. So it's really been a focus on what is it that we can control? What are the things that we can work on right now in the environment that we're in? And really just pivoting when we need to. And I think with what's unique with our group is that we do have Jess on Zoom while we're training, and we have our group that's in person. And so we're able to surround everyone with athletes and people who are going through the same experience and who are working and striving towards the same things. So having that group together in that aspect, I think is one of the biggest motivating things. And as athletes are going through that up and down, as they're preparing for the games, you're able to talk with people that are going through the same thing. So it's just trying to create that environment where we have our plan, that end goal is still the same. We know it's going to be changing as we go, but we're just going to adapt to what comes our way.
Yeah. Jay, you want to jump in right away?
Thank you guys for joining us. You was talking about the pandemic as far as the timing of it, and know other athletes around the world when it comes to events always trying to peak at that major event. Now, with this pandemic, nobody knows when it's going to start and whatever. So how do we keep motivating our athletes or do we have to rest our athletes so we can have the optimal level of peak when we get to the Olympics?
Yeah, I think the key is just meeting the athlete where they are. Some athletes had kind of gone through those waves of like, what am I going to be doing? They're focusing on earlier in the pandemic. Some of them are now. So it's just really having that individualized plan and really meeting the athletes, I think, where they're at. And again, setting up goals together and setting up ways, whether right now it's not competition, right now it's training. So it's setting up what is it that we're focusing on right now? What can we accomplish right now so that when we are outside and we are in competitions, we're able to hammer in on more of that focus. So I think it's just meeting them where they're at. I mean, it's challenging, of course, but just really focusing on what we can accomplish in the environment we're in, I think is going to set up all the athletes for success when the games come.
Yeah. Real quick, Nandini, how have you managed over this period? Because it's been almost 2 years since a competition has actually taken place for you guys. But how have you managed to cope with things?
Honestly, we've been pretty lucky over here. Our training hasn't changed too much since we were able to get our training space back where we can be as a group, and we train at the Athletics Canada facility for our gym. So just having those two options open still has really motivated me to like continue on with training, and then also having a really like open, clear relationship with Lisa, clear communication, just tell her how I feel when I'm like up or when I'm down, and I think it's made my life easier. And also just having teammates around, like training in a facility with teammates and having Jess on Zoom, it definitely is motivating. She's like easily the most positive person I've ever met. So having Jess on Zoom is actually such a big motivating factor.
I found this on the web.
Jess, obviously they're speaking highly of you, and we had a conversation that you're the morning person, so we know how you have been kind of staying, right in at what you want to try to accomplish, but as the goalposts keep moving, how are you continuing to motivate yourself? The fact that you're in Bermuda and these guys are in Canada, but you still are able to be in contact via Zoom, via training and all that. But how have you been working out mentally, preparing yourself for the year that may or may not actually happen?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to lie to you. It is pretty tough. And, I miss these guys so much. We have such an incredible group together. And, we're more like a family than just teammates. But definitely, thanks to technology, we're still able to kind of connect in that way. So, when we have those tough training sessions, we can still kind of be there for each other and say, come on, you can keep doing this. And there are some sessions that we end up talking, for 15, 20 minutes afterwards, just on, how we're feeling, and kind of just seeing how we can all continue to push through it.
Yeah. And I see we welcome Austin in. Austin, you are welcomed into this open chat. How have you been feeling over the last few months, kind of stuck, just training?
How's it going, everyone? Hello, I'm Austin, one of Jess's training partners. It's been going well, but also a bit of a roller coaster in terms of mental performance, I guess. So we always like to focus on physical performance and then mental performance. And the physical side hasn't really dwindled very much. We're still able to access our facilities and train at a high volume and at a high capacity. So we haven't been hindered so much in the physical side, but the mental side and maintaining that motivation and that drive to continue along a path that, at the end of it is now cloudy and we don't know if necessarily the games will happen or what is going on in the world. It's definitely a mental game for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
You was talking about facilities just now. I mean, some folks are able to get to their facilities. With the new protocols in place for everybody's facilities, trying to be as clean as possible, has it been a distraction for you guys, or has it helped to stay focused?
I think that having the facilities open for us to use has been incredible. We're incredibly lucky in Canada and where we are right now to be able to continue training under an exemption, which is fantastic. Just maintaining those high performance environments really helps stay on track and stay motivated and driven for everything. Yeah.
Now, obviously, everyone has their different field. What do you specialize in, Austin? Is it the longer distance, the shorter distance?
So I'm competing currently in the 100 and 800 meters. And then I also like to throw in the 200 and 400 and 1500 if we can, depending on what level of competition we're at and whatnot. I'd consider myself a middle distance guy who figured out his starts. I'm currently ranked very highly in the 100. I had a really awesome year or a couple of years in the past little while and was able to make some pretty good gains and set some North American records, as well as set myself in world leading time at one point in 2018 for the race. So a lot of fun. But yeah, I'd say middle distance, and then I figured out my starts a little bit.
Yeah. Now that's kind of strange because to go from 100 to 800, it's kind of unique, isn't it?
It is. It is in a sense. So the one thing that every race you have to do is start. So if when the 100 the 100 was always kind of on the side, I suppose, to my middle distance preparations. But then once I figured out the explosive aspect and we worked on the transition so much with Lisa, the transitional piece from short, fast strokes into high power, shorter cadence rhythm. We were really able to make up some ground there and find a place to be in the sprints as well.
Nandini, what about you? What do you specialize in?
So I'm pretty new to the sport, but I do the 100 and 400. Lisa's pushing me for the 8, and I guess I've done quite a few 8s, so 148. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And of course, Jess, you're the 1 and the 4, because they don't have the 2 anymore, but the 1 and the 4 and the 8. Not as you've narrowed it.
Yeah, I know. I always have a joke. If I have to do an 800, she has to do it too.
Oh, okay. Now, Lisa, I need to ask, when you're training someone like Austin, who does the 1 and the 8 as well, the others do the same thing, but when you don't do the in-between race, how does that training balance?
You really have to look at, or the perspective that I take is looking at what is it that we're trying to accomplish in the 1 and what are we trying to accomplish within the 8, and then just building in those training plans and what the focus is so that it's going to be setting Austin up for success in both events. And while the 800 is a longer distance in his classification, a lot of times it comes down to the last 200, 150 meter sprint. So a lot of the power aspect at that top end at the 100 is translating over into that 800. So it is challenging to have 2 different event groups, basically a sprint and a distance, but within your training plans, you're able to capitalize on things that will help both events. And then as we get into competition season, it's really trying to be in that environment and in those situations to develop for those 2 different events.
Now, Jess, you do specialize in the 1 and the 4, but the fact that you haven't raced since Peru.
No, Worlds. Worlds would have been the last one.
Right, Worlds, right after that.
Yeah.
That time in between, for someone that's been so active, it's got to be to a point where it's depressing at times, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I keep going back and watching those races just to try and, remember, what it's like to be in a race and looking at what those goals were for that year and then leading into Tokyo. So, in Dubai, I was, racing some of my fastest races I've ever done. So we were, very on track, pardon the pun, to get to Tokyo and to race well there. So having this standstill has definitely been very tough. But like I said, this amazing group that I'm very fortunate to be a part of, to train with, they've all definitely kept me going and believing in the dream still.
Jace?
I have to say, I have to jump in on this because Jess is down in Bermuda by herself on these portable rollers in her house. And she comes into every single training session with that smile on her face, encouraging everyone, talking about how great her workouts are, all the accomplishments that she's doing. So while it's been such a huge gap, I know I've seen how much Jess is motivated within the sport and how she is capitalizing on what she can be doing to prepare herself for Tokyo this year.
Thanks, Lisa.
100%. I have not heard anything negative out of Jess at all through all of COVID with regards to being motivated for her training.
Oh.
You guys are gonna make me cry. Stop.
Dude, you're just like a freight train on it. You're like, I'm still training, and yeah.
She's literally
Jace?
the whole time. Anyone else has anything negative to say, Jess is right there to be like, no, it's gonna go great.
Well, I might as well add on.
Just like her.
I might as well add on. I don't think I've ever heard Jessica ever complain. So, but I think Jessica, we spoke with this probably in a few conversations before. But for the rest of you guys, technology in the sport. Obviously, technology is ever changing. What are some of the new things that are coming or on the horizon that could probably help each one of you excel in your sport? Whether it's equipment, whether it's training styles. Just give us an idea of what's the new trends in the technology world as far as the sport.
There's a lot of studying went into heat acclimation for because the Paralympics were going to be one of the hottest on record. So they looked into heat acclimation and did a bunch of ice vests and testing as well to find out how we could most quickly recover our body temperatures. And that was pretty cool in the terms of the research that was done. There was some good findings there that we know we perform better when we feel cooler. So going into something sweating already isn't because you feel hot isn't necessarily the best way to go into something. I know that the one that's been on my mind that I've talked to a few other athletes about as well is virtual reality Olympics and being able to run your race in the stadium with the people that are going to be on the line in advance. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that would be cool to see in the future.
Interesting. Well, we're going to take a commercial break, and when we come back, we'll speak more about the Paralympic sports.
Perrier water has been renowned worldwide for over a century and a half. Collected from a pristine ancient mineral water spring in the south of France, originally bottled in a distinctive green pear-shaped bottle, and distributed in Bermuda by John Barry Unlimited, our foremost beverage distributor, refreshing Perrier is the champagne of mineral waters. Try Perrier water in bold, natural fruit flavors with no added sugar and 0 calories. This month, we're featuring peach, strawberry, watermelon, orange, pink grapefruit, lime, cucumber, and regular Perrier water in cans. Lindo's. Why go anyplace else?
And welcome back. Lisa, we heard Austin speak about that stuff, but as a coach, how much research and testing do you need to do to ensure that if somebody comes to someone like Austin or one of these other athletes come to you and say, I think we should try this, how much research do you take up to see whether or not it suits what they actually do need?
Yeah, as a coach, there's a lot of research that goes into even just analyzing other athletes in the same classification, because different disabilities perform differently. They have a different technique. You're always trying to get to what that ideal form is, but you also have to work with the strengths of the athlete and what their disability brings to the table. So there's definitely a lot of that. I mean, one thing that Austin didn't talk about is that we're very fortunate at the Athletics Canada East Hub that we have an ergometer there. And so we've been doing a lot of testing with Austin around there. I think there's 5 different tests in total now that we've kind of added to, but it has the drums that the racing chair are on, they're split up. So we're actually able to measure force that's going in on the left side and on the right side of the wheel. So we're able to take that data and look at, is Austin being weaker on one side? Are we getting more balanced? And all those kind of data related things then come back to me where I'm able to look at it from a technical perspective and say, okay, how can we adjust this or how can we work on this to get into whatever that ideal form or technique is for Austin? So there is some of that kind of data research side. There is some of the heat acclimation that Austin talked about. But a lot of these guys, especially now with us being on rollers, it's all about tracking numbers. So max, average, speed, but their distance and their time. And being as a coach, then being able to sit there in front of the athlete and being able to ask them to do different aspects of their technique to find out what works for them and getting that immediate feedback from the numbers. It's so much easier to get so much further ahead than during the outdoor season where you're sitting on the side of the track and you're having to yell at them after every 400 meters as they're going by. So there's some pretty cool things that we're able to do during the indoor season that we wouldn't necessarily be able to accomplish on the outdoor. So there's quite a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, you need to really focus on what those core blocks are. And while you have all this interesting research and it can really steer you into where you should go, I use it more as a affirmation of what we're working on and what we're focusing on is what's leading to those higher times and those faster results for the guys.
Yeah. I know Jessica is very fortunate to be able to work with you guys over in Canada, but throughout the Caribbean, I think we're lacking participation because I'm not sure how many athletes who are in the same conditions that that you guys find yourself, or even related, know that there's opportunities out there. How does one look at that to strengthen the region? Because if we look around kind of the world, you see countries that have large contingents of multitude of athletes competing, where throughout the Caribbean, it's handful here, it's a handful there. How do we try to kind of bring some of those athletes from other Caribbean countries or our region along? You can take that, Jess.
Yeah. Okay, so I think a lot of the smaller countries, they haven't really been exposed to parasport. So in the bigger countries, if there's an individual that has an accident and becomes an athlete with a disability, there are a lot of programs in kind of the rehab setting that can get them into sports right away, so that they can see that they can have a life post-injury. Whereas a lot of the smaller countries, I don't think they have those resources or awareness of what's out there.
Yeah.
So it's really about just developing that and finding out from athletes specifically the areas that are lacking in order for them to continue training or even just start training, and avenues to get maybe even the equipment that's needed.
Nunley, what got you started?
So I play sledge hockey as well, or para ice hockey, and my coach for that sport, he told me about track and field. And prior to my injury, I actually did cross country, which was not a good life choice either. But I did cross country for that, so the idea of track and field was like very intriguing to me. And he introduced me to our coach Ken Tom, and I got onto a roller, and I wasn't the biggest fan of the roller, but I liked it enough to come out to the track again. So once I started racing on the track, I saw these guys prepare for Rio and kind of fell in love with the sport from there.
Mm. And Austin, what got you into the track and field?
Again, I started out at the Cruisers doing para ice hockey. When I was a young boy, I guess, I was just wanted to play sports and go fast and try new things, but really just didn't want to be left out of sport at all. And my parents found the Cruisers, and I started playing sledge hockey there at 6, and then started doing track at 7. Picked up wheelchair basketball at the same time for a little bit and did all 3 at once, and then really started to excel in track and got kind of focused in on that around 2012.
Jace?
Jessica, you mentioned it about being in rehab. Sometimes folks been motivating athletes. I remember being down in University of Miami, the Miami Project. Therapists will actually try to get patients involved in sports. In Atlanta, the Shepherd Spinal Center is another one. I remember during the 96 Olympics, had a few friends that was doing swimming at the time, and they just took it up and just loved it. Let's bring it back home now. How do we try to motivate folks back home? Because we don't have those rehabilitation centers.
Yeah.
So how do we go about it?
I mean, I think Windreach Bermuda here is just doing a fantastic job, and their reach is growing further every single day. But it is just about making sure that we have these conversations, and I thank you guys so much for having us on here to discuss things like this, and just bringing that more awareness of parasport, and especially here with having such a small community of people with disabilities, I think it would be pretty easy to, get together with these people and figure out, do you want to get involved in sport, and how can we best assist you to get there?
Lisa, as a coach, there's going to be days, as all athletes, there's going to be days that, I just don't feel like doing this. I just, well, you guys say Jessica's not that one, but but there are days but how do you then get through to an athlete, because you want to get the best out of them each and every training session, so it maximizes the time and the energy that you've got to put in to get the results, not that just that day, but setting the goals for down the road.
Yeah, I think it all relates to what I kind of said earlier about meeting the athlete where they're at. And any athlete is going to have days where they're just not feeling it and they just don't want to be there. And it's a challenge to get through the workout. But the key is focusing on what is their goals? What do they want to accomplish? If they showed up to practice, they clearly want to get something out of it. And so it's really maybe scaling down what the focus is into one thing, and utilizing that point in time and continuing to build. Because at the end of the day, one single workout isn't going to be the make or break, but it's going to be that build and what's going to move through. And so it's really utilizing each and every workout to the best of your ability, but focusing on what's that one thing that we can get out, if it is just one thing, and just continuing to plan ahead and to look at what can we do, or what are you building towards? So whether it's going to be 3 months down the line, whether it's Tokyo Games, what is that aspect that we're working towards, and just kind of redirect what that focus is and remind them of what is happening and what you want to accomplish.
Yeah. Jace?
Lisa, we'll stick with you, Lisa. How did you get involved in this? How did you, become a coach? What was your educational background, and what led you to wanting to be a coach?
Well, I originally was going in for an education degree, and so I had always wanted to do coaching. I wanted to teach phys ed, maybe teach science. And in my 4th year of my kinesiology degree, I had an entire course that was focused around adapted sport for people with disabilities. And so taking that class and participating in all the different sports myself, I just kind of fell in love with it and knew that is what I wanted to focus on, whether it was coaching, whether it was program administration. I just wanted to be involved in adapted sport. So then I moved to British Columbia to do a therapeutic recreation degree. And that's where I met BC Wheelchair Sports Association. And they were actually the founding organization of a program called Bridging the Gap, which is all focused on getting people with physical disabilities introduced into adapted sports and going off onto whatever pathway they want to do within sports. So when I moved out there, I started to coach in our athletics program, and specifically in the seated throws events. And then when I moved out to Ontario, I came on with cruisers and switched over to the wheelchair racing side of things.
Austin, I met you some years ago, but I remember what stands out for me was the Rio Paralympics, where you competed. Take us through a routine for such a major event for you, the day of a race for you.
Was that to me?
Yes.
The day of the race, the routine. Well, definitely starts with waking up very well hydrated, and depending on when the race is, if it's in the afternoon or if it's in the morning, a little different. In the morning, you have to plan nutrition as well as the right amount of time that you want to be arriving at the track, and then what time you want to start your warm-up. So it kind of plays a little bit into the schedule. Really, the day of the race is about staying nourished and staying hydrated. And if it's a short, easy race, like if it's a 100, I don't tend to, you just try to stay in your own headspace about what you're accomplishing and what you're setting out to do instead of who you're racing, if that makes sense. So you want to like really have like the gold standard approach, I guess, of the warm up mixed in as well, so that you have that you're like warm and prepared, as well as relaxed, and know that you just need to do the technique and not worry about who else is on the track with you, I guess. And then if it's an 800, it's the same thing. You just need to more consider who's on the track, what they're likely to do, sort of positioning what you want if it's a semifinal. Yeah.
When you look at when you have to compete, Nandini, how does your day go? Especially if you got an afternoon race or an evening race.
I definitely work backwards. I try to eat at least 3 hours before. I don't like eating before the race, and then I guess it'll start from there, and then listen to some music, put air in my tires, and then get to warm up. Try to calm myself down. I generally get pretty antsy before a race, so I have to focus on leveling myself out and just trying to block out what everyone else is doing and just focus on making a new PB for myself. If that makes any sense. But I definitely work backwards in my day on what time I need to wake up, what time I need to eat, how to rest, X amount of things.
Yeah. And Jess, for you?
Yeah, I'm definitely similar to Nan. You kind of work backwards from the time of when your race starts. Typically, I like to get there at least 2 hours beforehand, just so that I'm kind of not rushing. And, if anything comes up, like a blown tire or anything like that, we have time to kind of deal with that situation and not panic. And then depending on what the race is, so if it's 100 meter, my warm up will be a little bit less in distance wise, but we'll focus a little bit more on the starts and just making sure that we are fast and snappy, as we call it. And then for the longer ones, the distance in the warm up would be a little bit longer. So that all factors into what time you actually start the warm up.
Yeah. Jace?
Any crazy superstitions? Well, I guess it wouldn't be crazy if you go back. But any superstitions on race day for you guys, whether it's gear that you're wearing, shades on, lucky socks, I don't know, some old pair of gloves, any strange superstitions?
I'm definitely the socks one. I always have crazy mixed match socks, and the guys always make fun of me for it, but yeah.
I have a specific pair of pants I always wear on race day, and that's about it.
I don't think I get too superstitious. I think Nan definitely gets superstitious after a race. She'll do really well and then go back and be like, oh, it's definitely because of this, whatever. And yeah.
Austin is honestly the most chill guy ever. Before a race, he's like, it's fine, we'll be fine, just breathe.
Just gonna start the race and go.
Yep.
Every time the gun goes off and you all go.
Yep.
Heading in the same direction as well.
Yeah.
Lisa, from a coaching standpoint, you've been around these guys for a while now. Can you recognize when something is not right on race day?
Oh, 100%. They all have their little its and bits to them. Like Nan said, she's a panicker. If she's not panicking, then I'm like, what's going on in old Nan's mind? But no, you get to learn your athletes, and you get to know kind of what's how they come into the race and what's going to be the best outcome for them, or what's the best strategy or environment to set up for them based on what their personality is. Nan's a panicker, Austin's chill. So it's just trying to keep that balance of making sure that whatever it is that we're going into, they're getting ready for that competition in whatever way that they like to prepare best, and that works best for them.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take another commercial break, but when we come back, we want to get an answer to this question. What race stands out in your mind as your best race and why? We'll be right back.
This month, we're featuring a range of infant and baby care products from Hello Bello, a company started up by a husband and wife team who were inspired to meet the challenges arising from the often surprising, not to mention messy, experiences that came with the territory known as parenting. The couple behind Hello Bello know that being a parent is uniquely demanding, and their mission is to bring you premium products at gentle prices. Try Hello Bello Apple Blossom Baby Lotion, Lavender Shampoo and Body Wash, Flushable Wipes, Diaper Rash Cream, Lavender Bubble Bath, and more. Lindo's. Why go anyplace else?
And we'll get Nandini, you answer first.
Well, it's definitely not my best race. Thank God I got faster after this point, but it's one of my favorite races. It was in my first year and we were in Arizona, and this was like one of the first few times I did a 400, and it was at like 8-9 p.m. It was a late race, and I've never felt like it wasn't like scorching hot. It felt like the perfect temperature. I felt really smooth and fluid throughout the race, and it was like the first time I really felt like I would enjoy the sport. Like we did the race and I was like, this is incredible. This is the best feeling I could ever imagine, and it feels like one of the most memorable.
Yeah. Let's try you, Jess.
There's been so many that, I've absolutely loved, and each experience is so different. But I think definitely the 100 meter in Toronto in 2015, we had worked so hard leading up into that. We wanted to be the best 100 meter and 200 meter sprinter we could, Ken and I at the time. And that was the first time that I had medaled as well. So that definitely holds a special place in my heart.
And Austin? Gotta unmute.
There we go. Gosh, favorite rate, or I don't know. The best one hasn't happened yet because I haven't medaled like Jess or anything at a major competition like a Worlds or a pair of Pan Ams or something sweet like that. So my best hasn't happened yet. Favorite races and stuff. Like I just have a lot of fun with the racing. If it's a 100 and you're neck and neck at the end and you got to wait for photo finish results and you both know that you were flying, that's a lot of fun. I have a lot of fun with that. Or if it's an 800 and, they take off at the start and you're like, oh my God, I really need to catch up here. And then you work it out and you work through it. And then you do catch up and you do pass them and then you win, and it's like I have so much fun with those. But to put my finger on a specific event, I think all of those times that's been the result, or not even necessarily the result. Like even if it was a 100 that you were waiting on a photo finish that you ended up not winning, just that's so much fun. I have a lot of fun with that, and passing people or accelerating hard out of a corner.
Jake?
Expectations for Tokyo. What is you guys' expectations per event?
Pressure. We'll start with the local girl.
There's a lot of pressure. I think just going into Tokyo, I'm just focused on, making sure that I'm healthy and that I'm in the correct headspace, so that when it comes down to that start line, I know that I'm going to put everything I have into it to get me across that line. Obviously, it is the goal to make the podium, but that's definitely not what I'm focusing on, because I feel like that would put too much pressure on myself and I will start freaking out, and my technique won't be like how I know it can be. So just focusing on every other aspect that I can control at this point, especially with COVID going on right now, in my preparations.
Nandini?
Oh God, I'm a little new to the sport, so the idea of Tokyo is it's a pretty broad. That's probably a question for Austin and Jess to handle. But yeah.
What are your expectations for it though, Nan?
What are my expectations for Tokyo? Just that it happens.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Everything else, I just want to be the best I can be prior to it, and just leave it at that.
Will you use the experience as a learning experience, take it all in, and then look to improve next time around? Because I remember that's how Jess got involved. She was taken to Beijing, was it? Yeah, and just watched it and took so much in, and then 4 years later she was involved, and then 4 years later she was, highly ranked. So is that kind of a stepping stone to what you could possibly do?
100%. That's definitely the motivation and the goal, just to see how it goes.
Nothing wrong with that. Austin?
My expectations for the 2021 Tokyo Paralympics are that the athlete village is going to be a lot more. Everyone's hanging out in their hotel rooms. It's going to be a lot more tame in the sense of intermingling with other countries and supporting maybe your teammates at the venues. Might be a little different with the way that the world is right now, or we don't know what they're going to do with attendances for the village. I think that the racing is going to be top notch. I think that there's been a divide of people who have said, okay, yeah, I'm going to whatever this next Olympic round and get back on the horse later. And I think there's other people or the other half who's said, or not half, the other portion who have gone the other direction and said, I have more time. This is going to be great. I'm going to focus on everything I can. I'm going to use this to my advantage. So I think that there's going to be some pretty significant numbers out there in terms of records being broken and bars raised in terms of performance. But I think in terms of atmosphere and environment, it'll be a little bit settled down.
Definitely food for thought, because you're going to have expectations. You have to share that with your coach and then somehow work it out. Jess already said, she doesn't want to put too much pressure on herself. Then everything goes out the door. The rhythm, the starts, all that type of stuff. But Lisa, it's part of your job to ensure that they remain focused and locked in. But one thing I noticed, because when we were in Peru, Jess, and I always talk about that 100-meter waiting for it to start. The sitting on the start line had to be close to 5 minutes, if not longer. But settling an athlete when it's abnormal, Lisa, how do you prepare them if, like Jessica had to do, sit there and wait for a start? So many things must go through one's mind.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do leading into it. Like, one strategy that some of our mental performance staff have suggested is literally just laying out every single thing that could happen. So that long hold on the start line, your tire pops in the call room, and working through, okay, if this does happen, how are you going to manage it? And doing that way ahead of the games so that you've already kind of thought through that process of what I'm going to do, instead of sitting there on the line and going, oh my God, I'm still sitting here. I haven't been able to go out and race like I thought I would. So there's different strategies that you can use around that. But to Jess's earlier point, I think the key thing, especially this year, is for all of our athletes to kind of focus on that process, not necessarily the outcome. Because when you focus on the process and you focus on all those little key things that you know that you can improve upon, we know what that outcome is going to be. We know that you're going to hit PBs. We know that you're going to be on the podium. But if you start focusing solely on that, rather than all those little bits and pieces that you can build towards to get there, that's where the wheels come off the train. So really focusing on the process and really being in that moment and knowing every single thing that you've done over this past year, over the last 4 years, is all building up to this point, and you have everything there. You have all the tools. You just need to follow your plan like you had coming in.
Jace?
With the Olympics months away, the world's still in a pandemic. You guys in Canada, Jess is here. Any competitions that you guys may be able to compete in prior to the Olympics? Is there anything on the horizon that we're looking forward to prior to the Olympics?
Well, I know that Switzerland is a goal for us, which will be in May, but even that might not happen. But I do know, I think cruisers are probably putting on a few local track meets in Canada. So it probably won't be the same caliber or schedule that we usually have, where we're flying everywhere pretty much every other week. It'll definitely be a little bit more toned down, and then Tokyo probably will be, it is always the biggest race, but it probably will be the big race of the season.
Yeah. The fact that it's the next one is only a 3-year turnaround, how much of your planning changes? Because generally you, after an Olympic year and your world championships, and you have some downtime, but because you've missed so much, everybody's going to try and get their stuff in the calendar to try and make up for what they've already missed out. So how much planning for this event goes into looking forward to 3 years from now, because that's when the next Paralympics is?
I mean, everything that these guys do, like everything that Austin and Anna Jess have done last year, has put them in the place where they're at coming into these games. And so even though it is such a quick turnaround time, everything that they've been doing will continue to build. And so while it is shorter, we're still progressing towards and seeing those improvements. You're right in that there typically is a bit of a down year. And so it's going to be challenging for athletes to kind of wrap their head around, but then that's where athletes and coaches just need to communicate and build in those blocks and those downtime to have that kind of mental reset so that they're ready to go when we need to start planning and building into whatever that next competition is that following year.
Yeah. Jace?
And, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just thinking, like, for me personally, I know that, not having any races since 2019, I think it's given me a little bit more motivation to, continue on and to realize that even though we don't have that gap year, we're getting back to competing, and just enjoy that process because we've had that taken away.
I was just thinking with the traveling now and all the protocols that comes with COVID, quarantine, maybe once you guys get there, how normally you was traveling every other week or so, but how different it's going to be this time going to Tokyo, where you might have to quarantine and enter a bubble and before you can even really start getting out on the track?
I think Tokyo will be similar to what the team does in a typical year anyway. And the bubble is nothing really new for Team Canada traveling to the Olympics or Paralympics anyway. Usually we take all of the track and field, runs, jumps, throws, somewhere else, and we'd have a staging camp, and we'd hang out with all the facilities that we need as Team Canada's runners, jumpers, and throwers. And then you'd have gymnastics go to a completely different facility, place, maybe not even the same country, for their staging camp, or maybe a different town or something for their staging camp. So I don't think that'll be that much out of the normal, but yeah, maybe could be a little bit different with the traveling restrictions.
Yeah. Well, Jace, just to let you know, the way that they're doing it, or what's been reported they're going to do, the athletes can come in 5 days ahead of schedule, but have to leave 2 days after their event. So quarantining will totally be out of the door, because once the athletes get there, they'll get all the credentials, they'll get everything, they'll get a chance to train and be ready for however this opening ceremony, if they're going to, well, they will have an opening ceremony, however that will materialize, and then it's into action the very next day. So some will see action, and some probably won't even be there for the opening ceremony, because their event is the 6th day of competition, so they can't come into the village until that 5th day before. So that's how they're mapping it out for athletes over the period of time. in Tokyo for the Paralympics as well as the Olympics. So kind of puts a damper on the spirit that these guys have, and they're able to get around amongst each other to because you don't get to see everyone in this at the Paralympics in that environment only once every 4 years, because 9 times out of 10 you only compete amongst a certain group of people other than the World Championships. So it's going to put a little damper on it, but it is what it is. As long as we get the games going on, and then you see the smiling faces, win, lose or draw, you see the smiling faces. So that's the most important thing. We're going to take another commercial break, and we'll be back with more of the Islandstats Sports Show in a minute.
Go Macro started up at the beginning of the millennium in Wisconsin in the U.S. with macrobiotic farming in mind, motivated by the pursuit of health through balanced nutrition. Go Macro is a family-owned company dedicated to living and promoting a natural, whole food-based lifestyle. Like most whole food businesses, Go Macro is also dedicated to bringing you the flavors they love. This month we're featuring Go Macro Vegan Organic Granola and Coconut, Sunflower Seed Butter and Chocolate, and Coconut Almond Butter Chocolate Chip Macro Bars. Lindos, why go anyplace else?
Austin, there's several guys that train with you guys. Do you find you try to battle harder with the guys to ensure that you stay on top of your game, or are you one of those, as they say, you're the laid back one, you don't worry too much about things, but do you find yourself battling and training just to stay that kind of extra focused?
Absolutely. The animal in me is alive, well, and strong. And even when I'm pushing a warm up with Nan, we're like stroke for stroke, and I'm like, okay, we gotta pick it up a little bit. So that that animal side of me is definitely there and wants to be competitive and race and be competitive with every aspect of the warm ups, workouts, and cool downs, like all of it.
Now we often see a lot of athletes, when they warm up, they got a headset on, they're listening to music, or they're listening to a motivational speak, or whatever they're doing. Do you go through that type of routine, or are you just a free spirit? Let me just take in the atmosphere.
So definitely, if I am not with a group and I'm alone, or if I'm at my house, I have music absolutely blasting, and I like to jam out when we're warming up. But don't have that same option when we're with the group. Lisa prefers us being able to hear her, which makes sense. But yeah.
Jess?
I think on race day, I don't really listen to music, but definitely during training, I will have music going.
Okay. Final question, Jay?
Jess, entering the stadium, opening ceremonies. Tell us what's that feeling like? And also, or even closing ceremonies. What is that feeling like?
It's absolutely incredible to be able to carry the Bermuda flag. Is just something that I will forever have that memory. And I'm just so proud to represent our beautiful island. And I'm also very, very grateful to all the Canadians for, including me in everything that they do, and all their training camps, as well as their pre-Worlds training camp that I was very fortunate to go to. But definitely Bermuda is at the heart.
Yeah. Well, I do want to thank you all for your time. You've enlightened us on how you prepare, how you train, how life is for you guys, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you all on the track in Tokyo, doing what you do best and enjoying it. And we want to wish you all the best. And stay safe. Obviously, we're still dealing with this pandemic and many other things going on around the world. And obviously, you guys over in Canada, you're dealing with it much more than we are here in Bermuda. But we feel for you, and we hope that you do all stay safe. Okay? I do want to show Jess one thing.
That's awesome. I'm so glad you have it.
Me too. Trust me. Me too. Jess won this when in Peru. It was presented when medals were presented, and she actually presented me one in Peru, which I will cherish this forever and ever. I still have it. I just wanted to share it to you. So,
It's very special that you were there with us.
not a problem at all. Not a problem at all. We'll be back with more Islandstats Sports Show after these messages from our sponsors. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
We're spotlighting a food producer whose products are made with real wholesome ingredients, such as the highest grade farm-grown vegetables and certified organic free-range livestock with no artificial ingredients or preservatives, and no compromising on the painstaking quality control. Imagine Foods believe that higher quality ingredients, meeting high standards of purity, yield greater nutritional advantages and a more satisfying flavor. This month, we're featuring Imagine Foods organic roasted turkey, vegetable wild mushroom, and savory beef gravy. Lindo's. Why go anyplace else?
Well, Jay, we are now going to be joined by Pharaoh Williams, who is the newly appointed national coach for Bermuda Burlers. Jay, yourself, I could say you play the sport. We'll leave it right there. But Pharaoh, no stranger to Bermuda. You were here. You had the unfortunate circumstances of losing in the final of the of the championship. But take us through what you saw in the Bermuda Burlers that would kind of get you involved first of all, and then try to move them forward with the sponsorship and the opportunities that will come along with what you are able to assist them with.
Well, excuse me, and my voice is cracking, so please be patient. I was invited to come to this tournament years ago, probably about 2014 or 15, but the schedule never worked. So, well, not this past November, but the November before, one of your locals, Adorna Hayward, begged me to come. And I said, "Hey, Adorna, you know what? I have nothing on the schedule. I'm going." So, getting there and bowling the tournament, I mean, I'm not going to lie. My first thought was at practice session was like, okay, a lot of these guys are terrible. This is terrible.
Jay, you were there?
Huh?
No, Jay, you were.
Stop it, Jay. Stop it. And once the tournament started on Saturday and I started seeing everyone bowl, I started knowing who were the typical league bowlers and who were the actual tournament bowlers. And then when we made the cut to match play for Sunday, then I started weaving out who were the actual Bermuda national team bowlers. From what I've seen, the one thing I love about them is they have heart. They have the drive. One thing about in bowling, you don't have to be the best. You have to have the animal instinct to compete. It's just too many bowlers in the world who don't have the perfect skill, but they have that drive to be the best, and they become out to be one of the best bowlers in the world. Their game is, most of their games are a little bit different, but they're still fundamentally sound. You can just tell they're raw. They don't have the actual knowledge per se to go to that next step. And being at an island in the middle of the Atlantic, you're not going to get no respect until you actually win gold at the world event or the AMF World Cup that comes around once a year. So once, watching them bowl against Rakai in the step ladder. I'm sorry. I didn't bowl him in the step ladder, but I watched him in the step ladder. And then I also bowled against Maycock in match play, and then bowled against Damien, the lefty, who I lost to.
Right.
I just love the passion they had, and I've always heard that nobody ever gave them a chance. So first thing, the way I was raised, my parents are Southern. Every time you make it, you bring someone with you. So knowing that these guys want the information, they want to succeed, let me get out here and see if I can help them.
Okay.
Well, Pharaoh, I tell you got your hands full with this bunch of guys, man. It'll be a lot of jokes. It will be a lot of fun with these guys. But the disadvantage, I've followed the sport. I dabbled in it many years ago in competition also. But one thing that we always lacked was the knowledge of different lanes.
Yes.
Obviously, we're here stuck on an island of sorts. So we're only really built at one bowling alley or one house, they would say. In America, obviously, you can go around to different houses and get different styles of lanes and perfect your game in that way. Obviously, I'm pretty sure you had to get used to the pattern on the ball hooking probably twice as much as when you where you're from.
No.
And then depending on what shot out. I've noticed obviously over the last probably 10, 15 years with the increase of the technology
Yes.
being into play, it's helped our bowlers a lot. But what do you think we were really lacking as far as, because we are stuck on an island of sort, what do you think we're really lacking?
Discipline and accountability.
Ooh.
The guys are all good, but to be able to win, you have to have a team mentality. Right now, you have a bunch of individuals that want to be a team, but also think individually. Being able to read off each other, being able to move off each other, being able to tell another, hey, my ball just is read the lane about a foot earlier. You need to make a move on this one. Little things like that. Like we have to look out for one another. That what differentiates between Bermuda and, for example, my country, United States. I was on Team USA for 2 years. I bowled all over the world as well. The one thing is communication and chemistry. If the team doesn't have it, that's why back in the day it used to have what I think the top 6 would make the team and the next 6 would get picked. Mm-hmm. They picked because of chemistry, who they can mesh the other 6 people with. So a lot of times those same 6 people that got picked was on the team years and years and years before that they know they can mix with anybody. So with this team, for example, like I said, there's a lot of different characters, but they have to understand, like, if you want to be on the big stage, you got to train like you're on the big stage. You have to act like you're on the big stage. You have to get out there and want to do it. And I know we all got jobs, we all have family, we all got time, we want to do our thing, but you're going to have to train because the best are out there doing it more than once or twice a week.
Yeah. Now that the fact that that you're in a position, you've met with the guys, I guess via Zoom or however. What was your first message to the players in the national team?
Well, we haven't actually had the first actual meeting because of COVID. The last time I was there in March is when I propositioned them with being their coach and what I can bring to the table, meaning with equipment, accessories, and apparel. That's where it started. Because of COVID, shut everything down. They didn't really have a meeting about me until December. So once I was approved to be their coach, right now we're just waiting to set up our first training camp, which right now is April. That's when I will sit down with them in front of them and spill everything out, get what they want to return and what they feel and where they should go. And then I'm going to let them know where I'm going to take them, but also I'm going to push them.
Yeah, the guys come off of a successful tournament in Colombia at the CAC Games, where they picked up medals and so forth, feeling good about themselves and all. In Peru, they were just off a little bit. When you saw them, and you've already expressed the fact that you see they have the heart. What in your mentality do you bring to kind of shape them to become a team, a unit, all in one to help out each other? How do you work that out in yourself?
I mean, growing up, I was always an individual. I bowled mostly individual events, and it took until college and also Team USA to learn how to bowl as a team. And also my wife as well. She bowled collegiate bowling for Southern University. She taught me as well because I would I would still be there in the game bowling, but I wouldn't talk to nobody. I wouldn't give help. I would sit there and just kind of be a loner. But you have to learn that we have to watch each other. It's kind of like if I fall, you're going to catch me. Everybody needs to understand everybody's game. Everybody needs to understand the way everybody reads the lane, so that sometimes that person behind you will see something's changing or see something you're doing that you think you're not doing, and that we can help fix it. When you think as a unit, just like that, there's so many more advantages, because now you'll see the lane change together, except for, well, I saw it change, but I didn't know how it would react for you, so I'll let you go up there and throw a split or throw a washout. It really, hold on, somebody's trying to come in. It really just coming together as a team is more about spending time with each other, understanding each other's game pretty much. That's the best I can say to bring it all together.
Yeah. Jace?
Now, your background, I've read that you built numerous 300s. Me and Earl together, we could probably get about 350 just together, but you personally.
You're getting 50 there.
Tell us about your first one, and how many have you built, and when was your last one?
So my first non-sanction 300, I think I was 13 or 12. So that was probably 93.
Wow.
I think the Purple Hammer just came out. That was my first ball that was actually drilled from my hand. My first sanction 300, I think, was 95 or 96. I shot 300 in a big junior event. My first 800 was, what year was that? 1999. I shot, it was a match play tournament, so every game we moved to a different lane. So I think I shot 250, 240, 300. And I went to the next pair, shot 217, because one of the leaders came up to me and said, "Hi, I beat you by 3. Shake it off." So I kind of let it get to me. I shot 217. I go to the next lane, I shoot 300. Then I go to the next lane, and one of my close friends said, "Hey, man, don't shoot 300 against me." So I shoot 300 against him and shoot 817. The last 300 I shot was actually this past Sunday at a tournament here in Oklahoma. I think it was game 4. Yeah, I shot 289 the first game, 237, 234. And I shot 300 the fourth game. It's the last 800 I shot. I think it was Halloween weekend. I can't think of what it was. I was Halloween day or the day after Halloween. But it was a tournament out here in Oklahoma as well. I shot 811, I think it was. So 300 and 800s. Right now, I'm somewhere 220 to 230, 300s. I have to count. It's been a long time. And 800s, I'm probably right around 210, 20.
You are like a cartoon. Can't even imagine something like that. Tell me something as a builder, because Earl knows which one I will be. Are you that quiet, focused guy, or you're the guy that has to his mouth has to run and talk some mess to we say gamesmanship in sport? Earl knows which one I am. I'm pretty obvious.
No, I'm that quiet assassin. I like when people talk trash to me and say whatever they got to say. The way I was raised by my parents was, you don't have to say a word. Let your ball do the talking. So when they just talking and talking and talking, okay, no problem. As soon as they miss that first strike or chop that spare, and I'll run right by them, I just say, hey, better luck next time. Keep walking. Because that's the best thing about it is when people talk, and you beat them and you haven't said a word to them. Like, I don't have nothing to prove. You do.
But that takes now some good mental aspect of it, because some guys, you can talk a man right off his game, especially in bowling, because it's only you and that lane out there. So you could talk about a guy so fast.
You wouldn't believe it. I've been done. Let me let you know about some things that's been done to me. I've had people yell at me on the approach, walk beside me on the approach, put baby oil in my finger holes, take my bowling ball off the rack and hide it somewhere. My bowling ball went missing when it hit the backstop in the back, and then show up until 2 games. 2 games later, How do you lose a bowling ball that comes up 2 games later? So trust me when I say that they've tried it, but I always tell people when they say, how do you focus so well? I'm like, well, your focus just need more focus. Because if you're letting things bother you when you step up on that approach, then you might as well just step back down because you're not going to be able to do what you need to do. Because when I step on the approach, everything outside of what I'm looking at is dark. And that's it, I don't see nobody else. You can walk beside me. I'll see you. You can yell. I won't hear you because that's how focused I am.
Well, that's good, Jay.
So you're talking about equipment. Obviously, the equipment has changed since that purple hammer you had back in the day.
Yes.
And even back in the day, as it was known that you probably need to have a heavier bowl. But as we're seeing now, lighter bowls have become just as more impactful as these heavy bowls. The 16-pound bowls were back in the day.
Yes.
What is your equipment? What is the accessories and the equipment that you're using is going to enhance our bowlers? Because I'm seeing some bowlers walk around about 6 bowls and none of them work. So tell me your product is going to do something for us now.
Well, you know what? Well, you know what? All bowling balls are actually good. Don't get me wrong. The way the game is, technology is so advanced. The way you apply oil, the thickness of the oil, the different size molecules in the oil, the shell of the bowling ball, how fast does it absorb oil so it can grip the lane, so it can hook and make its turn. There's so many variables in bowling. Most of the time when you have a bad day, it's the operator, it's not the ball. The ball already knows what it's going to try to do. The ball is telling you what the lanes are showing you. What I bring with Motive is equipment that truly gives you a good read. You can make great adjustments off of them because they're not always so violent. You can actually get a read off them and make good adjustments, or it'll show you what ball to go to next in your arsenal. I've been with Motive for about going on 2 years now. I've known about them for a while. And when I wanted to sign with them about almost 2 years ago, the first thing, they were shocked because I was like, oh, you want to come over here? I'm like, yeah. I mean, anything for me, I'm a very high rev player and I also have a lot of speed. But I also am not like the newer generation where the ball just hooks off the lane in the back. I'm more of an old school bowler where my ball is more based off roll. So when I want my ball to hook more in the back, it's better for me just to switch balls to give me that motion rather than me trying to change it with my hand position because I'm just good at what I do. But the equipment that will be good for this team because one, everybody be throwing the same type of company. So now you can truly, truly read off each other as well because, you can make your adjustments together. Or sometimes someone can play a different part of the lane with another ball, say, hey, let's try this over here because it's working good for me. So all bowling ball technology is great. Trust me, all the companies we have out there are putting out great equipment. But always, Moto's always going to be better than all of it in my mind. So.
See, Jay, when I tell you it's not the ball, it's the person that's throwing it down the lanes. You know someone else has told you, believe it.
That's right.
Is that the last frame that was my problem, or someone else is my problem? But it's not. I'm always with that. Right? Now, you mentioned something about it, and one thing about bowling, Earl, and it's very similar to golf, is having that consistent swing, that consistency of the shot. One day you're doing everything right, and the next bowl it could just go wrong. Somebody get the jitters, what they call the jitters, or you see golfers shank. They can get 16 holes perfect, and then the last 2 just double bogey. Bowling is very much like that. How do you try to train somebody, number one, because that's what you, as a coach, to stay in that mode?
Well, you said it right. Number one is practice. Being able to repeat is muscle memory. Practice. Bowling, you can never bowl too much because the more you bowl, the more your body, your mind, your swing, your legs, they're all in sync. That's the main thing. If you're only practicing once or twice a week and then you're trying to compete with the big boys, no. The more time you put in, is the more the more stats you get out of it. There's going to be times where you're just going to be off a little bit. You're going to see it. But there's going to be times where you're going to be on and you're still not going to be striking the way you think you should be. So it comes with the territory because bowling is nothing but math and physics. You know, you can throw the ball the same where you think is the same, you know, by human eye. But if I have a camera on the lane tracking it and we do a different bird eye view of the bowling ball going to the pins, you can see how different the ball is coming into the pocket. So it just being repetitive, practice. The only way you beat being nervous is keep putting yourself in that situation to where you don't get nervous anymore, because nervousness is all about a form of experience.
Yeah. Well, Pharaoh, I personally want to wish you well. As Jay said, you got your hands full. But as you said, you've seen these guys and they want to improve. They want to be given the opportunity. And I know them quite well, that they're the offers in which you will attempt to give them, they're going to grasp them with both hands and do the best they can with the tools they have, and hopefully pave the way for people coming behind them. Because you got to start somewhere. Doesn't necessarily mean the finish line is right there as well. So I want to wish you all the best. Maybe when you get down here, I could get Jason to do a few clinics with you. You could actually use him to show people what not to do. And
I'm that talker, okay? I'm that guy.
Okay. Well, yeah, all right. What not to do. So yeah, we want to wish you all the best, and we look forward to actually seeing you on island and sitting down and have another chat with you regarding what your plans are for the Bermuda national team going forward. Okay.
Absolutely. Like I said, tentative. Well, this is probably more in stone now, but we were looking at March, but because of trying to get the new equipment and accessories and stuff there, March is not looking good. So it's probably going to be the first or second week of April. So definitely when I know it's in stone when I'm coming, I'll shoot you a message on WhatsApp so you'll know, clear your schedule for a little bum like me, That's...
No. Clear your schedule for a bum like me.
Nah, man. Like, I'm coming there to get to know the men right here. You know what I'm saying? So
okay,
I'll come out and hang out with y'all, man.
All right. Well, thanks again for joining us. We'll be back to wrap up this edition of the Islandstats Sports Show after this message from our sponsor.
Perrier water has been renowned worldwide for over a century and a half. Collected from a pristine ancient mineral water spring in the south of France, originally bottled in a distinctive green pear-shaped bottle, and distributed in Bermuda by John Barris Unlimited, our foremost beverage distributor, Refreshing Perrier is the champagne of mineral waters. Try Perrier water in bold, natural fruit flavors with no added sugar and 0 calories. This month, we're featuring peach, strawberry, watermelon, orange, pink grapefruit, lime, cucumber, and regular Perrier water in cans. Lindos, why go anyplace else?
Well, Jay, I think we've been enlightened in 2 different sports this evening, the para sport and obviously bowling. We want to thank our guests for joining us tonight and giving, some a different perspective, because of course we know the para athletes are people with different ability, but they compete as normal as they can, and to see it all in action, I tell you, man, it is amazing to see just the effort that they put in and the joy that they get of competing and seeing how much faster, how much stronger, how much that they can be themselves. And it's not even about, ultimately you want to win a medal, but for some it's just being in that environment.
Some of these athletes, depending on if they had a pre-injury, whether they had an injury prior to them, or born with the injury, I should say born with the injury, or having the injury for their life, if they get involved, it plays a different part, because that independence, when you become dependent on for so long, and then the sport becomes that sunshine, that light at the end of the tunnel that gives you that, the independence. So it's different from I'm just only worrying about results. Yes, when you're at the top of your game, you might be worried about results. But the fact that you're actually out here competing with friends because you end up becoming a family. And you can see they have adopted our pink hurricane up there in Canada.
Sure.
Because not too many folks going to go around the track with Jessica down here. But in saying that family, that and that sense of accomplishment, being around obviously para-athletes, Special Olympians, also Earl, you've seen it doesn't matter what they come in a race, the joy they have, the family, the support, the fans.
Yeah.
And I hate to say this, Earl, but you probably get the loudest cheer when you come last.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Stadium erupts when that person coming in.
Because it shows you're not a quitter. And
that's so in saying that, to see it at a different point as far as a professional, but on a high level, we talked about the technology, we talked about the nutrition, they talked about the equipment, the new stuff that's on the horizon. I mean, I was listening to Austin, I was thinking, man, we're thinking wrong because we're thinking you need to get warmed up and get a good sweaty in. And let's say, well, no, you should be a little bit cooler. Okay, well, how do I warm up? So just tweaking how you actually get to warm up. And somebody like Lisa now is going to try to figure all this out.
Yeah.
And then not realizing you also got like somebody like Nan, I'm going to stick with Nan.
Yes.
And Jessica, they're probably more, as you say, panicky or excited. Once again, that's creating energy.
Right.
So how do you control that energy, conserve the energy where also is laid back? So all these different techniques, it's what we're learning, and it's good to share the information because, fast forward to Pharaoh there, like I said, that's been some of our biggest problems is sharing that information.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how we could switch sports. It's the
same message. Yeah.
Whether you're still competing, but you're always competing to be. I always wondered, Earl, would you rather, you say football, would you rather beat a team 6-0, but they had 3 of the main people out, or you rather prefer to beat them 2-0 when they had the full team?
Oh, 2-0 when they had the full team.
Why? Because you want that competition.
You want the competition, yeah.
You want that competition.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's with any sport. You want to make sure that on that day that me and
you're both at your best. You're both at your biggest strengths.
That's it right there. And whatever. If you beat me today, can you beat me today? But that's the athlete.
Yeah.
That's
throw all the excuses out the door, maybe.
Yeah. Interesting with Pharaoh, and it's gonna be interesting because a lot of our guys are local based and basically build out of one bowling alley. What improvements that the bowling alley can really do to assist our bowlers? You mentioned something about practice, and I don't want to get too much into the politics of our local sports when it comes to practice, especially with our teams. Earl, you know this too, that our national players sometimes don't have the availability of the facilities.
Right, which is a big
it comes with a cost.
Yes.
And most of these sports we're talking about, and we listen to Pharaoh, and it's practice. Which number one, if we're looking at bowling, for instance, you're looking at, especially during the season, that is mostly every night, besides I believe Sunday, during the season, it's going to be a packed house. So how do you get all these extra games in? It'd be interesting how he's able to get around things like that. Someone like Jessica, I mean, we're listening. She's inside on rollers.
Right.
You're hearing guys like Austin talk about the facilities are open in Canada now.
Right.
So be interesting how, like Jessica, will our bowlers be able to go off island to a camp and do more practice and do more things. But further conversations, we'll get into it.
Definitely. Well, we've come to the end of this edition So, next week, it's another week. I do want to share some good news with you as it came out from the government whilst we were on the air. A total of 389 tests were received by the Ministry of Health. Since the last update, none were positive.
That's 2 days in a row. I believe we've had under 5 in the last probably 6 days or so.
Yeah. So let's hope this trend continues. So everybody be safe.
Yeah, well, it needs to continue because coming up it's in a month's time, right? When is the sailing?
They're due to start arriving, in a month's time. Yeah. So we'll see how that goes.
In 2 weeks' time, you'll get more information from the government, what stage we're going to be in.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll hear from the the committee to let us know what stage we'll be in with the return to play.
Yeah.
As of yet, but what stage are we? We're still in 1?
We're still in 2. Yes, still in 2.
So we need to get an update to see if we'll slide to 3 next week.
Well, let's hope.
We'll wait and let's get the information and then we'll.
The good thing is it comes out on the Tuesday and we're on the air on the Wednesday, so we have a day to get the information. So let's hope.
Hey, Joe Bell done with Dennis Brown, Kenny Thompson, and Neil Payton.
No problem, brother.
I really thoroughly enjoyed that.
Well, let me just tell you, the next pair, which I'm not going to reveal who they are even more exciting.
Trying to get it out of you. Come on, man. Give us a team. Give us a team.
Wait until Tuesday, or trust me, if you bump into either one of them, they'll tell you themselves.
Give us the teams. Give us the teams they played for. Give us the teams.
No, because then you'll know.
No, just give us the teams.
No, sir.
You're not telling us the era.
No. Well, let's put it like this: 60s, 70s.
No, I don't want the era. I want the teams.
No.
60s.
You know exactly who they are.
I'm not gonna tell you.
One was a Western team and one was a Central team.
Got a few people in my mind already.
Okay, well, just stay tuned. You this conversation, and guess what? Both of these gentlemen played international football. Played off the island, so yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That narrows it down a bit now.
Well, yeah, it narrows it down, but you have to wait to see who it is. So that show will come on Tuesday night at 7:30.
So let's process of elimination.
We had Jack Castle and Dennis Brown the first week.
Yes.
We had Gary Darrell and Clyde Best the second week.
Clyde Best, yes.
And then last night was the third show with Kenny Thompson and Neil Payton.
So folks, we've got to push all of them out. So there's none of them. Process of elimination. Can't be next week Tuesday. What time?
7:30.
I'll be there.
All right. Enjoy your night, buddy.
Take care.